Hello, everyone. Yesterday we started the chapter about halachas of planting on Shabbat. So we started with choresh, which is plowing, and we'll skip the next halacha, which was about dragging heavy furniture or strollers in the ground, because we already discussed that with boneh. So we are now up to Zo're'ah, which means to sow and to plant. So the melacha of Zo're'ah refers to causing plants or trees to grow by, for example, planting seeds or saplings, or by grafting trees. All actions that improve the growth of branches of fruit are forbidden by Torah law as well. Thus, pruning and weeding are forbidden because these actions promote plant growth, and they're also mentioned, by the way, in the same laws of Shemitah, which was discussed a little bit this morning in the Daf, where anything that is to improve the growing of a plant is forbidden on the Shemitah and also on Shabbat, and the comparison is mentioned already in the Torah. Um, so, similarly, one may not water plants or fertilize the soil surrounding them. It is also forbidden to apply dressings such as tar or paint to a tree's wounds in order to heal it. Um, One may not leave an avocado pit in a dish of water so that it will take root and begin to grow. Yesterday, we mentioned that a seed of a vegetable usually takes about 2 or 3 days to start growing, and trees start after 45 days. That's why before Shemitah, or for counting the years of a tree, if you planted a tree before Tu B'Av, the 15th of Av, then by the time it gets to Rosh Hashanah, it's already 1 year. But I have an avocado pit that I put into water already almost 2 months ago, and it still hasn't started to root. I'm not sure why. I keep adding water as it is sucking the water, but I don't know. It's very strange. Likewise, one may not put a branch in water so that it will take root and start growing. Again, even though it's not starting immediately on Shabbat, it is still forbidden. But we mentioned the Tur, who says that if you take it right out on Shabbat because you remember there was Shabbat or remember that it was forbidden, then you are not transgressing the prohibition. Included in the prohibition is germinating seeds in water so that the sprouts can then either be eaten or transferred to soil, like bean sprouts. It is also forbidden to soak seeds in water to soften them, preparing them to take root and grow. However, one may soak barley to soften it before feeding it to animals. And sometimes when we prepare the cholent, we also soak the barley and stuff like that. But since we're not allowed to make the cholent on Shabbos, then the soaking of the barley, even though it's not for seeding, should not be done on Shabbos because we're not allowed to use it for Yom Chol. So even if you're like preparing a chulent for later in the week, or maybe Yom Tov is on Sunday or something like that, you're not allowed to soak the barley on Shabbos, even though it's just for softening. But for animals, we are allowed to. This is because one does not desire for the barley to grow. Besides, the barley is removed from the water and fed to the animals before the roots emerge. One should not toss seeds onto damp ground, since they could start growing. One who tossed them would be guilty of planting on Shabbat. However, one may throw seeds somewhere they probably will not grow. Therefore, one may throw seeds in a place where people walk regularly or in front of animals who will eat them within a day or two, and also to the garbage. One may not open or close the windows or doors of a greenhouse in order to encourage the growth of the plants inside. However, if there is a house plant in the room, one may still open the shades and the windows for one's own sake, even though the sunlight and air that enter will indirectly help the potted plant grow, because that is not our intention. Our intention is for our own self to have the sun or the air. Since he did not open the shades and windows for this purpose, and the benefit to the plant is remote, it is not prohibited, as a psik reisha in the case of a double rabbinic prohibition, since the melacha is done both with the shinui and v'agrama. And related to Zo're'ah is, of course, irrigation. So there's two halachot here, halacha 4 and halacha 5. Halacha 4 is regular irrigation, and Halacha 5 is irrigation that is done indirectly with a hose. So let's see that. One may not water plants as it helps them grow and thus constitutes Zo're'ah. However, one may open irrigation pipes or turn on sprinklers before Shabbat, even if they will water plants during Shabbat. Another principle that we learned this morning in the daf, which was that you're not commanded for your kelim to be not working on Shabbat or Shmita. So if it's set with a timer, there's no prohibition if it will water the plants during Shabbat. Similarly, one may program a computer before Shabbat to activate sprinklers on Shabbat, as on Shabbat, no action will be done by a Jew. One who opens irrigation pipes before Shabbat may close them on Shabbat, as this involves no melacha. One who eats in a yard must be careful not to wash his hands over plants or their roots. If the plants are small and their roots are short, the prohibition applies only in the immediate vicinity of the plants. But if the plants are large, the prohibition applies to the entire garden bed around them. One may pour water on the ground if there are no plants or roots nearby, even though it is possible that eventually the water will reach roots or that wildflowers will subsequently grow there. This is not prohibited since one does not intend for this to happen. One may not pour water on his own soil if it is suitable for planting, since this softens the ground, preparing it for planting. So the difference between this halacha and the previous paragraph is the difference between if you are outside in a public area or even in the desert, like if you are camping, something like that on Shabbat, as opposed to when it's your own back or front yard. And so last but not least about the yard, if a sink has a water drain to the yard, I remember when we were in Syria, the whole drainage of everything was going into Syria, and obviously we would not be able to enjoy any plants that grew there. But this is something that is not very direct. So if a sink's drain pipe empties onto soil where plants grow, it may not be used on Shabbat by anyone who has an interest in the plants being watered. It goes without saying that one may not use the sink on Shabbat if it is intentionally set up for water to water the plants. So in many places where there's like a pipe of water, and it's open to the greenery, it usually waters mint or other kind of herbs. But if it is farther away and it's not within the vicinity, that's why we're talking specifically about this. So nevertheless, many poskim maintain that one who does not care about watering the plants may use such a sink on Shabbat. For example, if the plants do not belong to him and he has no interest in their growth, in a time of need, one may rely on these poskim to be sure. One who pours water directly onto plants violates a prohibition, even if he does not intend to water them, because he is helping them grow. In contrast, here the water is poured indirectly and is therefore a case of grama and permitted. So, like I said, if it's on an army base and the drain is outside of the vicinity, then that was why we were allowed to do it. If the water from the sink reaches plants that have already been adequately watered, whether through heavy rains or water that drained from the sink before Shabbat, then even one who is interested in the plants growing may use the sink on Shabbat, since he is not helping them at all. So if it's already flowing anyway and full with water, then there's no problem. And we'll stop here and open up for questions.